GNT show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. These are the voyages of the GNT show. Our continuing mission to explore Star Trek storytelling, to seek out new worlds and interesting characters, to Boliga, where no show has gone before. Live long and prosper, bitches.
On that note, shall we start the show?
Sure.
What the hell?
Good morning.
What episode is this?
It's actually 243.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Jesus. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the G&T Show, episode 243. I'm Terry Lynn, and across the table from me is the man Gettysburg 7.
Joe Lantrue. Oh, good morning. And across from me, to my left, your right, there she is. It's Francis.
Francis? Oh, do I have to?
No.
Okay. I have to lighten up.
No, Tucker Smallwood. Anyway.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that Francis.
And to
Okay.
my right,
Talking
your
to you.
left, wearing his Phil Silver's producer's hat, it's Francis.
Thank you very much. Kablah!
Was that your attempt at Phil Silver?
I have
Because
no
if so,
idea who that is. I just did a fun
Oh,
test.
your
you
education
don't
is
know-
lacking.
I weep. I weep openly right now when you say things like that. Do yourself a favor.
I've lived in a bubble all my life. What can
Do
I say?
yourself a favor. After the show, go to YouTube, look up Phil Silvers.
Okay.
Across the table from me, eating her unleavened foods with its spices and its matzahs, it's Francis.
The talking mule. Thank you. Good morning.
You're welcome.
It's for Michael Hinman. It's June 26, 2016. Good morning.
There you go. And I'm not sure if he's being obtuse today. Obtuse. Wow. I mean
Obtuse.
obscure. Wow.
SAT words for the
I
win,
know,
folks.
right? He's combing his beard. It's Francis.
Hello. I'm not obtuse, I'm acute.
He is cute.
Oh.
I'm not obtuse. I'm a bowler.
A bowler? Like a
Molar.
hat?
Molar.
You're a hat?
A molar. Obtuse.
Oh.
Obtuse.
Obtuse. Like a molar.
I wish we had
Wow.
car crash sound effects right now.
Bada bing,
We need more
bada
coffee.
boom.
That's what we need.
Just the sound of tires and twisted metal.
What did you do this week? Coffee Clutch.
How are you guys? Let's start off Coffee Clutch and get through it. Yeah, we do have a big show today. Some big news came out, which I'm
Really
sure
big
that some of our
shoe.
really big shoe. And
We have Topo Gigio.
hello, is that right?
Waylon Flowers and Madam.
Is that right? Mike has no fucking clue.
Nope.
What
and
we
that's
just
okay.
Is that right? Is that right?
We have Mrs. Silverworth who can balance tires on her head.
Those boys from Liverpool.
The Beatles.
And
Followed
then
the
you've
next
got
week by the Dave
Lucy,
Clark Five.
Lucy the plate spinner.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Well, you know.
What's the song that always plays with the plate spinners?
Da, 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 da. No, it's a. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's the saber dance. Yeah, that's that one. That's a.
I know that song from Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Does that
That's
count?
a different. It's similar. It's not quite the same, but it's very
Following the plate spinner, we have Myron the dancing bear. Followed by a political debate between Gore Vidal
Thank you.
and William F. Buckley Jr.
I was just gonna say, and following that will be a discussion with Gore Vidal. Oh my God, how funny! Oh, by the way, freaking me out this
Yes,
week.
Flight of the Bumblebee. Thank you.
it's the and there's just this week with all of the political stuff going on, and with the Brexit and everything else, I had to sit down and I had to look at Alan this week, and I just kind of went, "Oh my God, there hasn't been a week since January 1st started where I don't think that maybe Cor Vidal was right about everything." It's kind of freaky. And if you need to know what Gore Vidal thought, go look him up. Google the name and
I couldn't
watch
disagree
some
with
of the
you any
interviews he had
stronger,
with Johnny
right?
Carson. Holy shit.
Gore Vidal is not Vidal Sassoon. I made that mistake.
Did you really?
No, of course not.
But Terry, I could not disagree
probably
with you more
would've.
strenuously, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nick, what did you do this week?
Fuck, what did I do?
I was gonna say it was kind of a weird week.
It was just really busy, and then we had the surprise interview that we were able to nail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
by the
that
way,
was last minute.
that was
Completely
very, very
minute.
last minute, thanks to a few people who helped us put that together at the very last minute. Our
Yes.
conversation
Totally
with
awesome.
Christian Gossett. Actually,
Totally awesome.
Mike and Nick got to speak with him. I was a little preoccupied that night. Unfortunately, I couldn't take a break.
You all have no idea what the studio was like trying to get it set up.
Yeah.
And calling New Zealand.
They were just throwing shit into the studio. And for those who may not know, Christian Gossett was the director for Prelude to Axanar and had some very interesting things to say. There were some people who did you guys get to ask him the question? I haven't had a chance to listen to most of it yet, but did you get to one big question was, why is he talking now when he didn't before? Did you ask him that question? Because I have an answer for you. Okay. Because I understood that it was pretty much he was told to keep his mouth shut by his lawyers.
That's not what he said.
No? Okay.
He felt that it was just...
He had to come out. Yeah. It's very interesting and not at all surprising, to be honest with you. So you didn't do much this week? I mean, other than work and the Christian Gossett interview?
That's pretty much it.
Mike, what about you?
Well, the Gossett interview took some doing to pull off, which consumed most of the day. Other than that, losing my shit the first day that the guidelines came out and going from one meeting to another, talking to all of the fan productions that I'm involved with and trying to figure out what was going on and how things apply and whatnot. And
we'll be talking more about that shortly.
So, but yeah, I mean, those are the two big events of the week for me.
Very cool. Okay. Miss Janet, you've been a busy lady as always.
Oh, yes. I was doing a lot of school stuff. I interviewed 2 people. Is it 3? 2. 2 last week, and I've got another 2 to interview next week. So that's been working out really nicely. I'm getting a lot of it's a lot of project stuff getting done because it is more than halfway done with the summer semester. Summer semester goes really, really fast, and I've only got about 5 weeks left. I think it is now.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm in the 9th week, and so no, I've got 4 weeks left.
Jeez.
But you did manage to get a fan dance, the Brave New World, where you want to analyze the fan guidelines. So
oh yeah, that thing too.
You did do that too.
I want to know how you do all that while still being the brains behind Anonymous.
Munchkin clones.
The brains behind what?
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
It's the mask. It allows me to sleep. It gives me good vibes. It's helpful.
Alan?
Oh, I
Mm.
went golfing. I went horseback riding. Had drinks. Basically played hotel this week.
Nice.
Like Alex Haley?
Absolutely. And I have to
I
go
hope.
play hotel today too, which well, whatever.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's the other side of it is he actually has to work on a Sunday. So after this, he has to head over and
Why the fuck did they remake Roots?
Yeah, why?
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I heard it was quite
Evidently nobody did.
okay.
I did.
But what?
Oh, how was
But
it?
why? Why are you? What is this constant fascination with fucking remaking things that just show people the original and they'll love it?
Mm,
And did you hear what Snoop Dogg said about that, by the way?
no.
Why the fuck we keep making this? Stop blaming other people. Why don't you make something that uplifts us? Is basically what he said.
Aw. I
Right
love
on.
It's
him
like
sometimes. I really do. He's right.
Snoop said in an interview, "Why all blaming motherfuckers now? They weren't fucking here." That's like pretty much the quote. And I
But
was
he's
like,
right.
Right
I mean,
on.
I'm really hopeful that despite now, how do I say this without making it sound like I'm dissing it because I'm really not. I'm very hopeful about the new Star Trek show. About two things. One of the things they said is that they intend to make it more graphic, which I have always wanted. Right? There were how many times have I told you I didn't think DS9 went far enough, and I'm hoping that like doctors actually get to see that they have to freaking work with bodily fluids than just telling you a little blood wouldn't hurt. Show some gravity. Be that as it may, I hope that they don't lose that hopefulness. Mm.
Right on.
here it is. Snoop said, "I didn't understand America." I wish I could do a Snoop impression. I just need to become near comatose. He says, "They just want to keep showing the abuse that we took hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but guess what? We're taking the same abuse. Think about that part.
Mm.
When y'all gonna make a fucking series about what success that black folks is having? The only success we've have is Roots and 12 Years a Slave. Let's create our own shit based on today, how we live and how we inspire people today. Black is what's real."
And a couple of movies attempted to. What's his face did that movie with his son? The
Will
Hope.
Smith.
Will Smith?
Will Smith did the Hope one with his God, about him being kind of homeless and then finding a job and then
Oh yeah.
okay, but a true story. It was a very uplifting tale. But he's right.
Wasn't it like Happiness Nest or something like that?
Happiness
About
Nest,
Happiness
yeah.
Nest?
Yeah,
something
yeah,
Yeah.
with a
like that.
Y. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's right. He's right. But to be honest with you, I think we need just more of those in general.
Isn't that what Kevin Hart makes?
You know what? I have a thing for buddy films. I just do, and I can't wait.
Kevin
I
Hart
have
right
to
now is the busiest man in show business.
I just love buddy films, and the idea of him doing one with Dwayne Johnson. I have to see it. And
Pursuit of Happiness. There you go. Thank you.
okay, and I'm hearing really funny things. They said it's fucking hilarious. I'm sorry. I know it's going to be fucking hilarious.
Look,
It
I
just
know
looks-
this is bad to say. I'm not a fan of Will Smith, but
Yeah.
that movie Get Hard, I
Yeah.
laughed my ass off because of Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
And the movies with Ice Cube, holy shit. And then when those two go on Conan
Right along.
together,
You mean
Or
Will,
whatever.
Will Ferrell, not Will Smith?
oh yeah, thank you.
Okay.
No.
Different
Oh
guy.
yeah. You're right. Sorry. Well, you were saying
But yeah, and then they go on Conan. And did you see the one where they were getting Uber, or I'm sorry, they were just getting rides with Lyft, and it was Conan, and he had Will Smith. I mean, Ice Cube and what's his name, Kevin Hart with him.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And then the one where they were doing a ride along with his intern who was getting her license.
I don't know.
Fucking hilarious.
Well, this week I worked kind came home. Hold on a second. I have to hold on. I have to chastise my dog. Don't
What?
up at me.
What?
She's talking back.
Casey. He just went.
What was
God,
he doing?
Mom,
What was he doing?
What do you think he was doing? He was licking something.
He was licking something. He was chewing his feet, dude. This week, so I worked and I'm doing beta testing. We are converting our entire software system at work, the entire thing, all of it. Where we used to have 4 different programs to operate our company, we're now going to have one, and it's all going to be integrated. So as you can imagine,
DOS?
no, it's actually quite cool. I'm very excited about it. But when you're getting underwriting claims and finance all together for once, we still use a lot of paper. Right now, if I need to write a check or if I have to settle a claim or something like that, I have to fill out a bunch of paperwork, send it over to finance, and then they cut the check. That's the trigger.
Damn finance.
Damn finance. Well, it makes it kind of difficult because the systems don't necessarily talk to one another. I don't really know when a check's actually been cut, so I have
Basically,
to wait.
it's like the government.
Yeah, and so we end up wasting a shitload of human power refilling or backfilling information into everybody else's software. So this system is just going to be all connected. So when I actually write it, I'll actually be able to put in the information for the check and it gets kind of cut. And finally, we have that ability to where finance just needs to write, instead of waiting once a week to write checks, we can write them on a daily basis, which is great. It's going to be better service for our clients.
It's 2
Oh,
C's,
but the
2
beta
I's in
testing
my
on
last
it,
name for the checks.
my coworker Sherry has just been, she's been nose in 24/7 trying to get the bugs worked out, and I'm doing some stuff, and it's going to be a long couple of months. We go live on the 11th of July.
Fuck off, SB47.
I know. Sorry, SB47. But I'm going to tell you what I did see this week, and I'm going to highly recommend to a lot of our other geek friends. If this week I saw an ad, believe it or not, from Loot Crate that they were sponsoring Critical Role, which is the Dungeons and Dragons show over at Geek and Sundry. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah, we were talking about that the other night.
I am so addicted. I'm now going back and watching previous shows. I can't recommend it enough. And the reason why is because, and it really does tie into a lot of what we try to talk about here at G&T, and that is it's Dungeons and Dragons being played by voiceover actors. So these voiceover actors know their characters and they play their characters. Yeah, they're rolling the dice as to how good their hits are or what kind of damage they take. But the dungeon master and the people who play their characters are playing their characters. So when they talk to each other, they talk to each other in character. And I'm enthralled. I'm absolutely enthralled. And I actually found myself getting very upset when one of the characters was close to death, because that's what, if one of their characters dies, their character dies. And I was like, please don't kill him. Don't kill him. I was very upset. It's an outstanding show. I highly recommend it to everybody. You can watch it on Twitch at the Geek and Sundry channel. They play Critical Role every Thursday night. I think it's Thursday nights. But you can always watch the repeats on Twitch or on the Geek and Sundry channel. I'm just telling you, loved it. What does it enthrall me?
Our audience is just really being fucking dicks today.
I know.
I'm gonna start throwing out Banhammer, and by the way, I am totally hoping there's a certain somebody that comes in, because as soon as they enter, they're getting fucking thrown through the plate glass window.
Whatever. All right.
You also had a fan dance this week as well.
I did rant, and we can move forward now because we're gonna just kick it off with semantic shenanigans. Miss Janet.
I wish we had the Perry Mason music.
We could do Law and Order.
We call Janet
You have to get the license
Ironsides.
for that.
That's true. You do have to get the license for that. See?
Uh-oh, you're in trouble. Semantic shenanigans.
Canon.
The Miss Janet.
Yes.
This week, if you don't know already, I'm considering it really did make the rounds in the news. It made the rounds with us. We've already done 2 fan dances on it.
If you don't know what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, really. CBS and Paramount have released for the first time in history from any corporate IP owner rules on how you can play with their IP. Take it away, Janet.
It's not the first ever because Star Wars did it, right?
Only for a
That's
contest.
only for a contest.
Yeah, but it's still rules.
Well, no, it's not really. I don't even see them in the same light. Never have.
Yeah, those are contest rules, and they have certain things attached to them, such as the time limit on the Star Wars rules is because they know they were going to get thousands of entries. That's why they wanted them so short. But anyway, so for greetings to everyone who's just woken up from a 20-year coma.
Good morning, ladies and germs.
Reagan is no longer president. Okay.
He said germs. This guy's a card.
Oh my God. So we have, to quote Shakespeare, yes, Shakespeare's in the public domain, folks. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it and has such rules in it now. So here's the deal. What CBS and Paramount did is they basically said that here's some guidelines for you. If you follow them, you can rest assured that the chances are extremely good that we ain't going to sue you. Now, they did leave a little bit of a back door open because, after all, you and I both know, everybody knows, that there's always the word of the day, there's always some asshat out there who will try to bend things so far that they break.
No,
it never
No
happens.
one would do that. No one would, and then claim that they own the IP.
Never. So bottom line is that this is an assurance to most people, but what they're also saying is this is not a guarantee that you will never, ever, ever be sued. So keep that in mind. This is not like 100%, 100% home free, and for good reason, because they're not here to just sort of hand over their rights. This is a multi-million-dollar IP here. They're not going to just hand them over and say, okay, you filled everything out to a T, but there was something that you violated the spirit of this. So understand that. However, what they're also saying is that if you do not comply, what they're saying is that you might be sued. They might take action against you. They're not saying that they necessarily will, and that's an important distinction also. And let's back up and understand here that all the people who were bitching that Axanar is the only one who was sued, or that other groups might not have gotten notifications, or maybe they did, or maybe it was different or whatever, that doesn't mean a goddamn thing, because in copyright law, unlike trademark, in copyright law, you do not have to protect every single little possible violation, and you also don't have to go after everybody on an equivalent basis. This doesn't mean that one group has an exemption. By the way, everybody who has that stupid-ass rumor out who claims that Star Trek Continues or any other production has gotten an exemption, I know this directly from James Cawley. He says they have not been given an exception. Anybody who is petitioning for an exception, I know your heart is in the right place, but please don't do that.
It's not going to be... It's going to be ignored. It really is. As much as any other petition, whether or not it's to petition an exception or petition for even changes in the guidelines, as much as your heart and you see these as being oppressive, petitions are not going to help you guys. They're really not.
I would like to make a request, by the way, before we get too much further into this,
Mhm.
because I absolutely despise it when everyone uses the same word off the same talking points. So that word is banned from our show, and you know what word it is.
Aww.
Banned. I will leave if someone says it. That's how sick I am of hearing it in the last couple of days.
So don't say Flapdoodle, okay?
Flapdoodle always accept. Flapdoodle and Hootenanny always accepted.
Hootenanny. It's a Flapdoodle Hootenanny here.
We're gonna get down. Meet me down at the Hootenanny.
Flapdoodle Hootenanny sounds like a really, really, really messy.
That's the name of my new band.
I think that's the show.
Yeah, it sounds like a really messy porn. Flapdoodle Hootenanny.
It's supposed to be the serious one here.
Just like a 70s big.
Hold on,
hair.
I just sent a message down the hall. Let's see if he gets it.
What, you put it on the dog's back and send him down the hall like a carrier pigeon?
Of course we did. Yeah, that's the way it works, right? If I need something, I
Casey, take this to Daddy. Take this to
Those
Daddy.
dogs
Why are you
have to
going
earn their
outside?
living around here.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry, they have to earn a living.
Has Terry fallen in the well? Wait a second.
No, I just tie my empty coffee cup to Chloe's neck and send her down the hall.
Alan's stuck in the drain pipe again?
All right.
Its toe gets stuck. So Flapdoodle Hootenanny.
Okay, so let me All right, so let me get back to what we're talking about. No problem. So the question is also what's covered and what isn't. And the guidelines appear to be intended to cover anything that is on screen and fan created. So what that means, it would include a silent film.
Yes.
It could include read aloud fan fiction if it's filmed.
Yes.
It might include an animation or a slideshow. Probably does.
Yes.
As for audio dramas, I think it doesn't include them.
I can tell you.
Yes,
it does not.
Yeah, because
I can say that very, very confidently. Very confidently.
Yeah,
very.
And we're going to get to this in a moment because a lot of this is about what's on screen.
Right.
It doesn't cover essays about Star Trek. It doesn't cover blogging about Star Trek.
Correct.
It doesn't include a podcast about Star Trek. Does it include plays or live theater? Probably not, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
Understand
that's a question. Yeah, that is a question that has been forwarded to the people over at the Engage podcast.
How about musical groups that write songs about Star Trek?
There's a question too. So some of these
I was wearing my 5-year mission shirt yesterday.
Yeah. So some of these are.
It should be noted that G&T Show is compiling a list of questions to submit to Engage so they can ask.
We actually received a call, right? We actually received a call saying if you could get it out to your listeners that there will be a representative from CBS on the Engage podcast. They are going to be recording this tomorrow. So if you've got a question that you would like CBS to answer, mind you, a lot of the questions you probably have already been submitted. They will make every attempt to answer all of your questions regarding the guidelines. The show will be recorded, then edited, and then released probably by Thursday. So, but if you need those questions or if you've got a specific question, you can send it to us at hosts@gntshow.com, and we will be more than happy to forward those questions on to Jordan Hoffman over at the Engage podcast, which is now the official podcast for CBS.
The cutoff time is Monday morning, from what I've been told. So get those questions in sooner rather than later. Thanks.
Yes, and we're more than happy to pass them along. So the first of and the other thing I really want to point out here is that it is a standard legal uh, doctrine, I guess is the right term for it. And even though this is not specifically a legal document, this thing actually does apply, which is that all ambiguities in drafting are always construed as against the drafter. If something was supposed to be included and it wasn't, the fault is not in you and me. The fault is in whoever put the document together. So if somebody, looks at this and says, "Oh my God, there was a paragraph 75 and it's not in here," yeah, we can't be dinged for that. So don't worry about things that are not in this, and understand that if something can be taken two ways, then it can be taken two ways. But what I said before is still true, that they can amend these, and that this isn't a 100% guarantee, but it's a pretty good guarantee. If you can show that you were in compliance and you were trying and you had every bit of due diligence to attempt to stay within these parameters, I think you're going to be okay, or at least you're going to have a very good argument if you get into an Axanar style situation. So guideline number 1 says, and I quote, "The fan production must be less than 15 minutes for a single story, or no more than 2 segments, episodes, or parts, not to exceed 30 minutes total, with no additional seasons, episodes, parts, sequels, or remakes," end quote. My take on this is that you write a story that you call, I don't know, Star Trek Hunters, okay? And
You can't call it that.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. You can't call it Star Trek, but let's say you call it The Hunters, and you run that for 15 minutes, and you run a sequel for another 15. Now you're done with The Hunters. Can you run another self-contained story? I believe you can, because
I think so too.
Because under this, there's an ambiguity in here. It doesn't say that these are the only stories you can run and that you only get 30 minutes total and then you're finished with your production. It doesn't say that. It says The Hunters, or whatever you want to call the story, 2 episodes, 15 minutes apiece, not to exceed 30. So like if one of them is 20 minutes, the other one can only be 10. But then that's it for The Hunters, and then write something else. Therefore, this lends itself beautifully to an anthology idea. It also lends itself beautifully to a shared universe idea. And we talked about this a little bit actually on Facebook. A concept of, you might run your story, The Hunters, on one ship, let's call that the USS Orion, and then your friend remixes things, takes maybe your actors, and so the woman who was playing the helmsman is now playing the communications officer, and the guy who was playing the captain is now playing the engineer, and so this ensemble changes. They play different roles, or they could play the same roles, and I think you could still do that, long as the story is a different self-contained story. So your Hunter's story on the USS Orion, now the next story, maybe it's even 2, is, I don't know, the chefs, and that one takes place on the USS Julia Child. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Number 2. Let me find it. Yeah, thank you, Nick. That says the title of the fan production or any parts cannot include the name Star Trek. So we can't call it Star Trek Hunters or Star Trek Chefs. It has to be the chefs. Has to be the hunters. However, the title must contain a subtitle with the phrase "a Star Trek fan production" in plain typeface. The Hunters, a Star Trek fan production. No problem with that. That one's cool. Never say you're official. For Star Trek Continues, that means that if they want to keep going, then they would be called something like Continues, a Star Trek fan production.
Mind you, there's some big caveats with Continues, which we will address later.
Yes. The other thing is any productions with Star Trek in their marketing materials, Twitter handles, Facebook pages, Tumblr blogs, Instagram accounts, I believe they've got to expunge that phrase. And so that means, for example, the Axanar Twitter handle, which is actually the @ Star Trek Axanar, they're going to have to change that. Now, it does take a little while for to put in a request to change a
Janet,
Twitter handle.
Janet, can I just say
Of
something
course, of
here?
course.
Phil Stalkers, I'm not sure if you're just trying to be a jerk or not, but the idea of doing it at a faster speed is just fucking stupid. So just let it go. You sound like an axatard.
Unless
Thank
it's set to what is that? Sax.
Why are you spending so much time trying to find a way to get around the fucking rules? Jesus fucking Christ, that's what got us here in the first fucking place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gonna
I
read
think
that.
I think that attempts to do end runs around these rules are going to result in much harsher rules.
It's
Notice I didn't
exactly
say the
that
word.
kind of how far can I push it that got us in this fucking position.
That's right.
So fucking stop!
All
Okay.
right. Miss Janet.
All right, so number 3. The content in the fan production must be original, not reproductions, recreations, or clips from any Star Trek production. If non-Star Trek third-party content is used, all necessary permissions for any third-party content should be obtained in writing. Okay, first of all, I'm going to start with the first piece of this, which is the first 2 minutes of Star Trek Continues' story, The Fairest to Them All, is a shot-for-shot, line-by-line, block-by-block duplication of the last 2 minutes of the TOS Mirror Mirror episode, and I would say that that's got to be out. That's not a horrible thing, though, because if you're working within a 15-minute time frame and you still want to tell a mirror universe story, you clip that out, then you've just saved a fairly substantial amount of time. So it's helpful. You can't slip real footage into your film, so you don't have like on a viewing portal in the background that there's a picture of Vulcan that's, pulled off of Star Trek 2009. Forget it. You can't do that. You can't slip even, I would think, DVD extras in there, so you don't get things like Stephen Culp's character from Nemesis, Martin Madden, who's only found in the DVD extras. I would say, yeah, he's out too. With no specificity as to type, this may include references to musical themes and sound effects, but again, ambiguity should be construed as against the drafter. Since they don't say anything about sound effects, you're probably okay, but I think that would be a good question for the Engage podcast.
Yeah.
Is are sound effects included?
I can confidently say that will be addressed in the Engage podcast.
Awesome.
Because if they're saying you can, okay, here's the rules to make a Star Trek fan film, but you can't have the transporter sound effect, that's kind of an integral part of Star Trek.
The problem is right now the manpower it would take to create a guided portal from which to gather that information from the IP holder. Does that make sense? It's the fact is right now, remember how Star Wars had their guidelines for their contest and then provided a portal for those who wanted to use approved sound effects? But they got it directly from Star Trek or from Star Wars.
They provided a sound
They provided
effect
those
pack.
things. CBS does not have that in place. ... Yet? Question mark.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see if they do, and I think it would behoove them to include that. I think it would be a nice idea.
It would be a very nice idea. I think everybody would agree with that aspect. Whether or not they're going to have the ability to do it and anytime soon, I don't know. Listen to Engage when it comes out.
Yeah, but I think it would be a good gesture,
Right.
a goodwill kind of gesture.
Yeah.
The idea about getting third-party content, getting permission in writing, That's just really good common sense. So that if, for example, you have Vulcans on Earth, let's say you write um, the sequel to Carbon Creek, which is an Enterprise episode where Vulcans are on Earth in the 1950s, and you write Mistral. Well, he'll be on Earth in the 1960s, given how long Vulcans live. If you show footage from the film Woodstock on a television set, or maybe even use that as green screen background and decide to plonk him in the middle of Woodstock, you better get permission to use that footage.
That's right. Because that visual is actually owned by CBS and is copyrighted. Do you get it?
Yep. Number 4. If the fan production uses commercially available Star Trek uniforms, accessories, toys, and props, these items must be official merchandise and not bootleg items or imitations of such commercially available products.
Okay. And this is very important distinction that needs to be made right now. This does not mean you must buy your uniforms. It means if you're buying uniforms from a commercially available outlet, they must be licensed. Does that make sense? You can make your own uniforms, people.
Oh, and props and whatnot, as long as you're not, But if you're going to buy them, it has to be authentic, licensed stuff, not things from third parties.
And it doesn't mean you have to buy a Novos. A Novos has the license, but there's also others that have, how should we say,
Cosplay Sky.
Well, I don't think that they're licensed. But there are. ThinkGeek sells them. I think Roddenberry.com may actually have. I'm not sure, but I think they have the license to sell the actual patterns. Right. So just do yourself a favor. If you're going to be making a film, and you're going to be buying your costumes as opposed to making them, find somebody who's authorized to sell them. A Novos, license holders, ThinkGeek, whoever are out there. They may not be the best quality. If you want awesome quality, then you're going to spend some serious money at a Novos. Or you can make them yourself.
Now, here's another thing. Because they want Star Trek uniforms and whatnot to be commercially available and licensed, if you're going to buy them, for your aliens, your time period, stuff like that. Do you want to know why a piece of the action in part was filmed? Because they had 1920s sets and they could get gangster uniforms on the lot. You want to know why space hippies existed? Because they could get those costumes in second-hand shops. Be creative. Think outside the box. I hate that expression, but try to. Consider doing something different. So instead of having Beta Zeds and what they wear and whatnot, and maybe you can't buy that, and maybe you can't make it, maybe you don't have the talent, maybe you don't have the time. How about creating a different empathic, telepathic type species and have them wear something else? I mean, the suggestion I made in the blog was roller disco chic from 1978. What the fuck? Why not? You can find that stuff in a thrift shop, I'm sure. It's possible. And that's cheaper because we're going to get to the budget in a moment and you'll see where, you might really want to be doing stuff like that. Save a little money and, again, think differently, and you can find stuff that's a shit ton cheaper, and you don't run into any of this licensing or commercially available financial requirements when you're outfitting people on Earth or when you're outfitting original aliens, and I mean original.
Yep.
Fan productions, number 5. Must be real, quote unquote, fan productions. That is, creators, actors, and all of the participants must be amateurs. Cannot be compensated for their services. So no salary, folks. And cannot
no
be
salary, no pain, no pain. No.
Yeah. And cannot be currently or previously employed on any Star Trek series, films, production of DVDs, or with any of CBS or Paramount Pictures licensees.
And here's the
quick
thing.
question.
Yeah.
So, since Star Trek Online is a licensee, anyone that
Yes.
has done voiceover for
Yeah.
the game is unavailable to participate in fan productions. So,
would
for
say
instance, our friend Adrienne,
Correct.
because she's been in countless
Yes.
appearances in Stowe,
Yep.
she cannot do fan films.
Correct.
That's right. Kipley Brown, Gary Graham, J.G. Hertzler,
Tom
James
Maroney, Nick
Cawley.
DeGuid. Anybody
Yeah.
who's worked on the visuals, the effects.
Larry Nemechek.
Yep.
And by the way, Simon & Schuster is
Yes.
a wholly owned subsidiary. So if you're an editor at Simon & Schuster, yeah, I think you might be swept into this group. Okay?
One of the novel writers can't write a script for a fan production.
And you're pretty confident audio productions are not
I'm exceptionally confident.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
Now, the term amateurs is not well defined. However, I would say that if you're a member of SAG-AFTRA, I think it's by definition you're not considered to be an amateur.
Yeah, I was going to say.
However, if you hire a professional electrician to wire a soundstage, yes, the person is defined as a professional. But I would also I would absolutely make the argument to CBS and Paramount that we're hiring a professional electrician so nobody burns up in a fucking fire.
I think that would be a reasonable assumption. The electrician is not actually.
You're not using the electrician to market. You're using Gary Graham to market. There's a difference.
Right.
Floyd the electrician is not going to make people go, "Oh, I need to see that." Gary Graham as Saval, people go, "Oh, I love Saval."
Agreed. You know, I mean, I'm trying to, because we all know, like I said earlier, somebody's going to try to wiggle out of this. So I have no problem with using a professional electrician, a professional carpenter, and neither will they, because that's for people's own safety. That's not a problem. Forget taking a salary, folks. Even if you claim it's poverty level, even if you take one thin dime for your personal use, they're saying you don't do that. They made that very clear here. Again, that one had no ambiguity. Now,
Can I address Jake Galloway in the chat room? Yes, audio dramas are not fan films. However, these rules are written generically enough.
No, they're not.
That some of them can be applied if the CBS ever wanted to.
Really
and again,
can I
they're
tell you
ambiguous.
the truth, Mike? They don't give a flying fuck because there's not near enough audio drama and nobody writes about them and there's no buzz about them. They don't care.
It's not even that. The preamble clearly states that they're made for fan films. Video, visual recordings. Okay? So they do not apply at this time to audio dramas. Well, they could always add the word audio drama or audio drama in the
that's
future.
the thing. That's the point that I'm trying to make is that people need to be aware that although, yes, these are being directed at fan films, but that does not preclude the fact that at a future time that they
Absolutely
can be
not,
applied
because they
audio.
put that right in there saying we hold the right to change these at any time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anything can be changed at any time, but don't live your life assuming that it's all going to come crashing down any minute. Please don't. Go ahead and do what you're going to do.
But what I have been telling the audio productions that I've been working with is they might not apply to us, but that does not mean that we should disrespect them, that we should not make our best effort to comply to them as necessary.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You
Agreed.
Being respectful and trying to work within these guidelines, I think, is a good idea.
To be honest with you, advice I would give you guys who are doing audio dramas, as much as we all love some of the people that we know that are working on official Star Trek productions, don't use them. Don't use a person who has worked for Star Trek in the past as a voice in your show.
And I think that's going to be one of the major sticking points. If it does come to audio dramas, it would be that.
Just don't use them. Make it completely amateur. And the reason why is because we all know that this arose out of the use of professional actors and this started years ago, and we talked about it on this show years ago about how the paying of actors for them to do their roles in a fan production might be the start of a slippery slope. And here we are, many years later, I want to say 4 or 5 years later, after we first started discussing the fact that actors were getting paid, and I said, this is a bad idea, and now where are we? 5 years now, we're looking at the fact, now we get guidelines saying you can't use fucking professionals. Do you get it, folks? There is a very distinct line about what makes a professional, and that's somebody who got paid to do it.
There's a difference between picking a chick up in a bar and paying a chick to suck you off. One,
there's a Nickism.
Hopefully you're not going to get arrested. The other, you will.
All right. Well, bottom line is that understand that these guidelines are not just directed towards the filmmakers. These guidelines are also being directed towards, your Tim Russ, your J.G. Hertzler, etc., and telling these folks, if you want to keep working, you want to have work in your life, awesome, work, but not here. This is off limits to you.
Yeah.
So they should also be. I'm sorry.
There's some people who have their career has become appearing in fan films.
And isn't that in and of itself using somebody else's IP to make a living?
Well, yes. I mean somebody that may have been in the IP originally.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to mention any names.
Well, we can.
Walter Koenig.
Gary Graham.
Yeah.
Tim Russ.
I think that's
Aaron Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'm serious.
Hey.
No, I mean you want to any professional actor who's appeared in these quote unquote fan films. They got money. And here's the thing. They had to. These are union actors, folks. Mm-hmm. These are people who belong to a union that doesn't allow them to do a project unless they get paid.
Who can't go to certain states because it's not a union state, but meanwhile.
Be that as it may.
Yeah, these guidelines are also addressing that. They are absolutely, talking to those folks. So those folks, Walter Koenig, etc., they have also they've got a burden on them as well. They have got to. Sorry, they have to come back to the fan filmmaker who asked them to be in the film and say, no, I can't do that.
Right.
So there's there's a bilateral thing here. Number 6 says, and this is a little long, the fan production must be non-commercial. So, hey, no salaries, folks. CBS and Paramount do not object to limited fundraising for the creation of a fan production, whether 1 or 2 segments, and consistent with these guidelines, so long as the total amount does not exceed $50,000, including all platform fees. And when the $50,000 goal is reached, all fundraising must cease. This is ambiguous. There's parts that are clear, but there are parts that are ambiguous. Is the $50,000 only for 1 or 2 segments for a self-contained story, or is it for everything? It's a little unclear here. But I will caution you on one thing. Crowdfunding takes a nice bite out of stuff.
Yep.
So don't use it. How can you make money elsewhere? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. One of them is talk to your friends and don't use a crowdfunding service at all.
Yeah.
The fan production must be exhibited or distributed on a no-charge basis and or shared via streaming services without generating revenue. This means if you show it in a theater, you cannot charge for tickets. It also means that if you put it on YouTube, you cannot monetize it. Now, I want to make a little quick distinction here. You can attach a YouTube channel to monetization, and you should actually, because it permits you to schedule your videos, and that's very, very helpful in the social media field. But just make sure that you don't attach it to an AdWords account. And I believe they're going to be okay with that, but I would say grab a bunch of screenshots and show, and you can do that from the video management page, and I can show people how to do this, by the way. I got no problem with that. To make it abundantly clear that you're only doing this for the sake of being able to schedule this stuff. And if somebody wants me to write that up for them, I'm happy to do it. It's, because YouTube's a little weird with how they put it, but you do want to be able to schedule this stuff, but you don't want to be making any money off it. That's what you want to make clear to CBS and Paramount. If fundraising, the fan production cannot be distributed in a physical format such as DVD or Blu-ray. Now, somebody bitched about that, I saw, and said, well, they don't really understand the fandom. They don't really understand reality. No, that's not true at all. DVD and Blu-ray actually are going away. So that's actually more modern than you might think. But beyond that, getting people out of the business of sending physical perks means that you don't run into the Axanar problem of things taking 2 years or more to be shipped.
That's
or
right.
of them holding things for one shipment and not sending out smaller things such as patches because they were holding up that they weren't going to send it until they had the Blu-ray from the film, and the film hasn't been started, and you see where I'm going with
Or
this.
they
Or
didn't
they
have
were
the money
sending
to
it to
actually make
people-
all of the stuff that they promised because they
Or
spent
they
their money on
also-
something else.
Or worse, they were sending to people who paid for it in a store, but just to someone who was a straight up donor who did it as a perk is still waiting.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So this wipes the donor stores, and
Oh, but
that's a good thing.
But that had to be the good way to do it because Axanar never makes any mistakes. They do everything so perfect.
Yes, we are
It's-
bitter. There is no doubt.
Logan
Yeah.
Creed, go suck a cock, you prick.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Mm.
So, I mean, getting out of the physical perks business is because physical perks are a nightmare. They are a nightmare. I mean, it would have been so much easier, not just for Axanar, but for anybody, if you keep the perks as virtual. Because when you do that, yes, it's possible for somebody to copy it and remix it and send it and all that other shit. And because you can't exert a copyright on that, which is further up, in this guidelines, then you're kind of fucked. But actually, that's not so bad, because if your stuff is sent out there, even if it's sent out for free and you didn't get a perk from it, and you didn't get a payment for it, guess what, folks? It's spreading your message. That's still helpful. Fan productions cannot be used to derive advertising revenue, including but not limited to pre-roll or post-roll advertising, click-through advertising banners, etc., etc. Advertising banners don't really make you a lot of money. This is not a big issue. It really shouldn't be. Advertising banners don't make a lot of money at all.
No.
No unlicensed merchandise or services can be offered for sale or given away as premiums, perks, etc., etc. Again, this is wiping out the donor
Should that
stores.
even have to be in there? Because if you're selling unlicensed merchandise, you're already breaking the fucking law.
But
That's
it's a
right, but
reiteration.
we'll put it in
Yeah.
here anyway.
Yep.
We're eliminating ambiguity here.
Now, excuse me as I pour some more Axanar coffee, unlicensed.
You know that, like I said, I think that's part of what really triggered this was this donor store and the alternative funding sources that
Definitely.
that arose when Axanar started to branch out into its own Star Trek IP. That, I mean, the very gall.
And then bitch about these rules.
The very gall that somehow Alec Peters and his team thought that they actually owned a license that they could issue to somebody else to make things that for an IP they didn't own gobsmacks me.
Yeah. Fan production cannot derive revenue by selling or licensing fan-created production sets, props, or costumes. That actually kind of could be folded into other things. But again, this is an attempt to eliminate ambiguity.
So all the sets that Continues is built.
They can't sell them.
Right.
So if they're done, let's say they close up shop today, and maybe they do, then they just own this stuff. and they can't sell it. Does this mean that they can't perhaps have people come in, and look at them almost as a museum? I don't think there's a problem with that.
I
Can
want a
they
birthday
charge
party
for that?
there.
I don't know. I'm sorry?
I want a birthday party there.
There you go. I think that might be a good question for Engage.
Yeah.
Because they have this physical location and they have all this stuff, and what do you do with it? Number 7. This is an interesting one. The fan production must be family friendly and suitable for public presentation. Videos must not include profanity, nudity, obscenity, pornography, depictions of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or any harmful or illegal activity, or any material that is offensive, fraudulent, defamatory, libelous, disparaging, sexually explicit, threatening, hateful, or any other inappropriate content. The content of
Wait, go back starting with the must not display.
Videos must not include profanity, nudity, obscenity, pornography, depictions of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or any harmful or illegal activity.
Does that mean they can't show Romulan ale or Klingon blood wine?
Wait.
I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah.
But those are alcohol.
Right, but we're not talking about Lost Weekend here.
And also, this will be specifically addressed by CBS on the Engage podcast, because there is as you can imagine, a very big question as to how a story, and let's all face it, and Star Trek does revolve around commentary on the here and now, and commentary on socio-political issues. And those things may involve the idea of the use of drugs or addictions or things like that. This topic will be addressed by CBS in the Engage podcast. Okay?
I would also say that they want to keep away from hate speech, but if you had a story where someone was arrested, let's say somebody was a mass murderer of Muslims, and they were, spouting off all sorts of horrible things, I think you could still tell that story. I think you could. Particularly if you framed it with the idea of them being brought to justice. I think you could tell that story. I know you want to say, oh, you don't want this to be politically correct. I hear you. But what they're trying to do here is keep people away from excessive swearing. I think they're trying to keep people away from...
That's fine. But you don't even get me started, because...
Yeah, let's not go down that road. But I mean,
because the whole hate speech thing is a fucking disgrace to begin with. Because, never mind. I'm not going to get it to selective enforcement.
All right, but it's.
Star Trek 6 could be not made as a fan film now. Then, Klingons are galactic trash. That's hate speech.
Well, all right. But let's not go down this road. But one thing I also want to point out here is that there might be swearing in the new show.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're not under these guidelines.
Well,
because they're not a fan film.
They're an official project.
Right.
Exactly.
And, so anybody who bitches about that, go shit in a hat, as we used to say. It's
you can't say that in a fan film.
Yeah. Go poop in a hat. It's that's not of your concern. That's not related. That is absolutely apples and oranges. I think they're trying to get away from bullying speech. I think they don't want this to be anybody spouting off in a Trek uniform about white supremacy. I think that's
Was
what
that
they're
even a
trying to
problem?
It wouldn't surprise me if there's somebody who is a member of the KKK and is also a Trekkie. I bet there's somebody out there.
Yeah.
Well, they're also developing the guideline to also think ahead to things too. So it may not be that there's actually been an infraction like that, but they're being thorough.
Yes. So number 8 is the disclaimer. I don't want to go into that. I think that's pretty damn straightforward. Number 9, creators of fan productions must not seek to register their works, nor any elements of the works under copyright or trademark law. And that's, again, you cannot get a license in derivative works. But here's a question. what happens when you've got something that's original, that is linked up with the stuff that is copyrighted? The best example I can give you is Dr. McKenna. This is an original character, but she doesn't exist without the Star Trek IP. So who owns McKenna? I honestly can't tell you. I don't really know.
It's definitely kind of out there. Now this is my own personal opinion, everybody, and it really doesn't come from anything other than just kind of experience, and it may be entire bullshit, but my opinion on that per se is that McKenna is the creation of the people who made Continues, and that if Star Trek and CBS wanted to use her, which is highly doubtful, but if they ever wanted to bring that character into an official production, they would go forward and actually remunerate the people who created her, probably Vic, and say, we'll pay you for your story. Remember how we talked to both Larry Nemeczek and we talked to James Swallow, where they actually sold stories to CBS and Paramount? They didn't write the script, but the stories were sold.
Same thing with Dave Mack, and it's only a paper moon.
It's the story itself that gets purchased because it's an original tale, and I have to tell you that the amount that they purchase these for are extremely low. This is not a big amount of money that they get to, but they get to the rights to that story now, and they can retell that story over and over and over again. So it's not a script per se, but the actual story. It kind of falls into that area. She's part of an original story. They can, if they ever wanted to use it, they would probably do the right thing and go out and say, we'll pay you for the story. But that's something outside of what we would ever really know about, unless McKenna or one of the tales from Continues or any other fan production came around. I mean, let's face it, if they thought that a story was good enough, they would probably pay you for it. So don't panic on that end of things. I think that those ideas about who owns an original character, those are things that are definitely arguable, but also things that, to be honest with you, if you've got an original character, an original idea, they're probably going to stay away with it with a 100-foot pole. So.
And SB47, yes, Tom Paris was originally supposed to be Nick Lacerno from the episode The First Duty, but they didn't want to pay the writer of The First Duty royalties every week when Tom Paris was on, when Nick Lacerno was on, so all they did was change the character to Tom Paris.
And that's how they get around it.
I want to.
That's why it's the same actor.
Right, and I just want to back up a little bit because people in the chat room are talking a little bit about Slash. I think that the non-pornography, etc. Ruling, I don't think that affects Slash at all. You can tell Slash stories without anybody getting naked. You can absolutely tell those stories.
Well,
and
exactly.
I think
because it's parody. In a way, it's parody.
No,
it's
Well, I mean.
In a way,
are you talking about Slash amongst existing Star Trek characters? I mean, I've never seen a video production that ever had it.
All the Slash I've ever is written.
Right. And that has nothing to do with the guidelines.
I think that the point that was being brought up in the chat room was there was images brought up of movie posters of pornographic.
Oh, the porn,
Star Trek, which again is parody.
Correct.
Yeah, but obviously, if it's real life porn on the screen, they're not going to want it. Number 10 is just that you cannot create or imply an association or endorsement. That's very similar to saying no official. You can't call yourself official. And then the last part is just they reserve the rights to revise, etc. And these guidelines are not a license. So it's where do we go from here? First thing is obviously the Engage podcast. Let's see what they have to say. Definitely get your questions in. I would absolutely ask them. But if you forget to ask a question, there's no reason why you can't ask one later. Although it may take a while before a question is answered, but that's just the reality of life. Will they sue again? Maybe. If somebody is pushing that envelope and keeps pushing it and pushes it too far. And that's also, because in the chat room it was suggested, well, what happens if we, if we double speed the everything, so that we have a 60-minute episode, but then you send it home and you tell everybody to listen to it on half speed, so that it's
I think the word
come on,
I
don't do that.
personally I think the word total really covers that, because it's runtime. It's total runtime.
It's and also, again, that's not really adhering to the letter or the spirit of these guidelines. That's attempting to do an end run. That's trying to do to violate them, really. And I think they're not going to look too kindly at that. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily
And then
mean they're going to
because
sue.
if somebody were to try and do that because of the actions of one, just like the situation we're in now, everybody then gets even more shit put on them. And I say, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it's also you could be creating a situation where these guidelines get stricter, or the strictest guideline of them all, which is basically fuck you, no fan films. But this is
but hold on a second. But going back to the speed up thing, it is interesting that point was brought up, because there is, when a movie is shown on network television or any place, and at the end they are required to show the credits. But if you notice, a lot of times, especially on things like sci-fi or something like that, they will show the credits in like
4
20
times the
seconds.
speed,
Yeah, and again, there's a professional getting around a rule about that, using that same aspect. So it's ironic.
Or I like it when they shrink it to the size of a postage stamp as they go to like an ad or a coming up next on fill in the network.
Right. And speed it through so fast you can't see it, but technically they showed the credits.
Yeah. I would say that I think that these guidelines are they can be a real push towards creativity. And think about bottle stories. Think about things like that. And one place for a guide is absolutely the 3rd season of TOS. They did not have much of a budget at all, and look what they did.
They did some amazing shit.
Spectre of the Gun and the Empath. Both of those stories, I keep pointing to those stories. They're very spare. They're very simple. You could clip a lot of the fat out of even those stories, particularly anything on the ship. Get rid of those things. And I think you could come down to 15 minutes or maybe to 30 on stories like that. Obviously, you don't want to copy that outright, but to have a story like that. How about a return to the planet where Spectre of the Gun happened? Why not?
Well, what's really interesting too is the advances in technology now, where people can green screen at home.
Yes.
At a fraction of what it costs then to do that is just mind-boggling.
Thrift store costumes, folks.
Huh?
Thrift store costumes.
Yeah. Or make your own. Learn how to
make
sew.
your own.
Learn how to sew. I mean, it's
be a fan.
Yeah, be a fan. Go ahead.
Here's who I feel bad for in all of this.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Continues, Farragut, people like that who've done everything right.
Yep.
But because someone had to dig in his heels like a spoiled little fucking Augustus Gloop.
That's awesome.
Willy Wonka reference for the win.
And that's how they've how anyone at this point can still be drinking the Kool-Aid and say they did nothing wrong. I don't understand. I really don't.
Yeah.
And especially for them. I'm sorry, Robert Burnett. I'm really sorry. But when you say you're the only ones fighting for fan films, really? Really? This is because of your intransigence. We did nothing wrong. Then why won't anybody from Axanar answer the simple question, show me the license you got to sell Axanar coffee?
Hell, show me the books. But
Oh,
I,
Show
and
me
then
the show me the goddamn books. I want to
David
know where that
Gerard,
money went.
David Gerald. Uh,
Too bad, David. Sorry.
well, I'm sorry, he put out a thing, like a super long thing, like he does,
Yeah,
and I don't understand why he's drank the coffee. But sir, you are
because he was
so
gonna.
factually incorrect when you say Axanar is the most transparent financially. Really? Have they gone through what Continues did to get 50C3 certification? No. It's
It,
a fucking Excel spreadsheet that they said,
it's not.
well, this looks good. This looks good.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not even a spreadsheet that adds up. I do want to address another
It's
thing
just
in
like
the
we're
chat
missing
room.
like $600,000 at least.
Yeah,
And to say you have no dog in the fight is a disingenuous lie that you rage on
Agreed.
while he's
Gene.
barking in the background.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and he rages on Gene still about Gene lied about this and Gene lied about that. Stop it.
Oh, he
You're
still
making.
raged. He
Come on
raged
already.
about. I personally find it. I personally find it a bit offensive that he's upset about this when he used to be upset about the fact that, and still is apparently, of people who were selling unlicensed tribbles. And you don't get it both ways. Either you get to be
Right.
upset because your shit was stolen. You don't get to steal other people's shit just because. I'm sorry that I find that highly offensive, and you can't have it both ways.
Let me interject something really quickly because this was asked in the chat room. If there's no violence, then how can we show Klingon versus human? I say I think you can. I think that the no violence or the less violence. I think what they're trying to say is no gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
They don't want to show heavy duty torture scenes. And yes, I know about Picard going through torture, and let me tell you, that was done without it being bloody at all. I think you can show a story like that.
They don't want the passion of the Spock, okay?
Exactly.
Yeah. We
Perfect,
don't want to see
Nick.
somebody
That's
bleeding
perfect.
for the entire
Right.
run. That's not
and
going to
let's
happen.
face it, if you're a creative filmmaker, what makes those things so powerful? It's when you don't show.
I will go back to what we talked about. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
The show Emergency.
Yes.
Plenty of people in pain and getting needles and all of that. They never show the IV being inserted or the doctor cutting. See, I was watching and they were doing something, and I was thinking, if this was filmed now, they'd show the scalpel,
Opening the
slicing the skin
Right.
and all of this, whereas they didn't need that then. Instead, when he said this, and then they cut to Dixie looking at the doctor
Right.
working, and maybe her eyes showed, oh, that looks painful, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yes.
Look at
It was.
old
What about
movies.
MASH?
Yeah.
MASH is a perfect example, right? You didn't need to see the sucking chest wound. You just needed to know that it was there, the people's reaction to that sucking chest wound, and the screams of the patient that was having it, that had it. It was powerful.
If
And
you want a
here's the
class
other
in
thing, folks.
filmmaking and
As a
how to
filmmaker,
do,
it's
sorry.
cheaper.
Yes. If you want a class in how to make something that is scary or violent or whatever on an incredibly low budget with near zero blood, go watch the original John Carpenter's Halloween.
Oh yeah.
That is
Oh.
all in your head.
Watch the
There-
Blair Witch Project.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Watch Twilight Zone. Watch
I
The
thought you were
Outer
gonna say
Limits.
Twilight. I was gonna have to drive up there and beat you.
No, not Twilight. But okay, you see where we're going with this? There's a lot that's that's
Outer
implied.
Limits.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Outer Limits.
Yeah, Outer Limits. It's implied. This stuff is implied. By the way, there was some blood on MASH, but there still wasn't so much. It wasn't like spattering the walls, folks.
No,
If you
early
always
seasons there
knew,
wasn't.
right? You always knew when there was an artery involved, right? Because the spray came up and would. That's how it's done. That's not overt. That's not violent. I think what they really want to make sure is that you don't go so far as to show a graphic rape scene,
You
a
don't need to be Saw.
graphic violent or graphic torture. Do yourself a favor and just avoid it. But it's not that you can't talk about it. It's not that you can't. Just don't show it.
There's another. You know what? Great point, Terry, because I'll bring it up. You don't have to show it. What is the pretty much what a lot of people consider the best scene in Jaws? Quint talking about the attack on the
Oh my
Indianapolis.
God.
We don't see it, but the writing on it is so good, and of course Robert Shaw, describing what happened. So if you want to make a fan film and you have somebody describing what it was like to be tortured at the hands of the Tal Shiar, you don't have to show it, but
Yep.
boy, can they describe the hell out of it.
The whole conversation with O'Brien and his former captain talking about the Cardassian horrors that they endured.
Hmm.
That entire sequence of the two of them kind of reliving what had happened. We didn't see it. We got to imagine it. And what we imagined tends to be worse than what would ever show. It's truly remarkable what you can do as a talented writer. Do yourself a favor. Continue to focus on great scripts, people. Stop trying to make everything about what is seen. If there's any lesson that can be learned from this, is what we're starting to hear with regards to what came out this weekend, which was Independence Day. We're starting to see that there's
That was
a lot.
this weekend?
Yeah, Independence
I
Day
totally
resurgence.
wasn't even on my radar.
It's getting horrific reviews.
It wasn't on anybody's radar.
Yeah, it's getting horrific reviews. Why? The biggest thing and the biggest complaint is that it's all show, no heart. That it's all about science. It's all about showing the big battles and showing the destruction and showing this.
Oh, so it's like Michael Bay did it.
It's like a Michael Bay movie, right? And that what was great about Independence Day was that it was kind of done on the cheap, right? It was all done about character. You started to care about the characters. It was how they were reacting to this onslaught and everything, and you loved the character. It was all about the dialogue.
Did
It was all
Roland
about
Emmerich do this one?
and Dean Devlin, who's the owner.
Surprising.
Yeah, it was kind of sad. But
I gotta
be
tell
that
you,
as it
though,
may, it's
I
going to
was
be
never-
a huge. Yeah, it didn't do very well.
I got to tell you, I was never. When everybody got excited that this was coming out, this was not a film I ever thought needed a sequel. So
Yeah, well, it be that as it may, it's a perfect lesson for what
Yeah.
you should be doing as a fan film producer, and that
or
is,
Speed 2.
what are you
on a
trying to do?
cruise
Are you
ship.
trying to tell a story, or are you trying to show a battle? And
Remember
trust
that?
me when I say a 30-minute battle sequence. Show me 30 minutes of character interaction, and it's going to be amazing. That's what Star Trek was always about, was how
Here's
do
an
the characters
idea. If you
deal
want to
with
do a
something.
30-minute battle sequence, you have it, the battle
Yeah.
going on, but like the doctor and the nurses doing triage, like a MASH thing in the ship, and discussing, what's happening. Use your thoughts. Go outside the box, and whatever you do, I want my chocolate bars based on whatever it is your fan film is. With
Karen
cranberries.
O'Shea in the
Yeah.
in the chat room brings up something that has been attempted
Mhm.
called Project Small Access, and we saw this online and thought this was kind of a silly idea. The idea behind Project Small Access is that they decided that they wanted to give you
Alan's got
give-
some great feedback on this one.
yeah,
To
give
let
a,
him
give a
talk
big
about
fuck
it.
you to CBS and Paramount, and one person would buy the license and invite their friends and neighbors over to watch with them. Now it sounds like actually kind of a lovely social experiment, except that the idea being, oh, we're going to give them less money. Well, first off, I don't know who's driving to my house for this. I'm not setting out snacks for you people. That ain't happening. You bring your own fucking pie.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Project Small Access, the idea behind that was that one person in a city or whatever would buy a license to CBS All Access in order to be able to watch the 2017
They would subscribe
show.
to CBS All Access, but then invite everybody over to their
Yeah,
house to watch.
It's
Exactly.
no different than somebody subscribing to the WWE network and all the friends coming over for the monthly pay-per-view.
But the idea being, oh, we're going to screw CBS and Paramount out of,
Really?
the
As
other
you're still
money.
giving them money?
Right.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you people.
You're not
But-
gonna mean dick.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to mean dick. Your house doesn't hold enough people for this to matter. You will not get enough
I
people
guarantee you won't have
doing
as
this.
many people as the Duggars if they had CBS All Access.
Awesome.
I
Yeah,
guarantee
it's only
you
gonna be it's only gonna
also.
be like a
This
month into it, and then you're like, God, I really want to watch the Star Trek episode. You can call up your friend. Can I come over and watch the Star Trek episode? And
No, my mother
No,
won't
get
listen
used
over,
to it,
no, I'm
dude.
busy
Fred.
tonight. Well, then they're gonna pay
No,
the
we just
$6.
had a fight, dude, and I'm a fucking
Right, and then the
bitch
person's going to
that
pay
I
the
can't have
$6
anybody over.
anyway and have the streaming service themselves because they'll realize, oh, it's convenient to have it myself.
I had to laugh about this because this person is trying to use all of. I think what amuses me the most about this, in a sad kind of way, is the amazing self-importance of the people who are angry right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that somehow this bullshit that the fans own Star Trek, which we all know is complete and utter bull. They love it, but it doesn't mean they get to own it. 2 is the idea that they're so self-important that somehow the lack of, they say, oh well, they'll lose 85% of their potential revenue.
How do they
Okay,
get that number?
it was the whole six person thing, right? If they had 10 people come over, they would be losing 9 subscriptions.
Because
I'm sorry,
everybody
I'm
is with
laughing so
CBS to
hard. I'm
watch
just
Star Trek. Everybody, everyone in the country.
so on a monthly basis.
Jesus Christ.
And here's the other thing. It's this amazing self-importance to the idea that Star Trek is the only thing that CBS
Yeah.
owns. When you have to that somehow CBS All Access, like the only show they're going to have is Star Trek. When are you people going to wake up and realize that Star Trek is only one piece of CBS's and Paramount's amazing library of other intellectual
I
properties that they own
guarantee you
and
Big
already?
Brother will draw more people.
Oh my God. It just makes me laugh to think that you're going to have some kind of financial impact because you and your friends are going over to each other's houses. Shit, we used to do that for Twin Peaks. We
Yeah.
used to have Twin Peaks parties when it was playing on network television.
Well,
If it
dude,
was on a
they don't.
streaming service,
These
it didn't.
fucking people
Oh,
don't
it's
think
so
that, like,
funny.
the NFL, okay, ratings for the NFL. Okay, great. So you've got the NFL Network, which you have to subscribe to the channel on the cable. It usually comes in a special package. So bars get the NFL Network. There's hundreds of people in there. Do you really think it's killing the NFL Network?
Yeah, exactly.
If
It
you
is
want
such.
to watch Star
Yeah.
Trek with your friends,
Yeah,
do it and have a
yes,
wonderful time. Have a
absolutely.
great party. That's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea.
And
Absolutely.
post it on social media and let it go viral. And then they can go, wow, look, I want to get the CBS All Access channel because look at how fun it is to have people over. And then all these other people do, and your little plan goes down in flames because you're fucking stupid.
I mean, have fun, have fun. Like have a great life. Don't be I hate this word. Don't be a hater. You're being
Well,
ridiculous.
the
You know,
other side of this is I'm going to boycott Beyond and the new
yes,
series
that one. I was
because
going to get to
of
that.
Axanar is being treated. First of all, do not ever call yourself a Star Trek fan then if you're going out of your way to try and kill something.
And
Sorry,
I even
you're a
have to
dick.
give Robert Meyer Burnett some huge credit on this because he even said, what utter bullshit.
Yeah.
He's a Star Trek fan. He's going to be seeing this movie because he loves Star Trek. He loves the films. He's going to go out there and do it because he knows darn well that that's not what this is about. Boycotting is bullshit and stupid. And again, even if dripping wet, you got maybe 25 or 30, even if every person who attended the Star Trek Las Vegas convention did not go see the movie, how much are they really going to be losing?
Yeah.
0. Because you are not what people call their elitist self is this bullshit core of Star Trek fandom. Number one, there is no such thing and never has been. Just because we're way crazy about it doesn't mean that we are really what supports Star Trek, because we are not. And I mean financially. I mean the actual survival and continuation of this is not the probably, the what we call a core group, the people who go to the conventions and We are not it. What really is the market for Star Trek, and always has been the market for Star Trek, has been the wider market, meaning pretty much everybody but us. And that was proven to us when Star Trek 2009 came out, and we started to see an influx of a completely new generation of hyperfans who started to come to the convention and started to show that this is going to survive the next 50 years without us. So get used to it, folks. Enterprise proved every new reiteration or iteration of Star Trek that has come along since the original series has brought in a new generation of fan. And we are just going to have to deal with the fact that you should never go out and try to make money off of somebody else's IP. And two, Star Trek's going to survive without you making money off their IP. It's just uncool. What Axanar did was stupid. They knew that the line was being crossed and decided to push it anyway. And that's what really angers me. I was pissed because we saw it coming. We all knew what was going to happen. And it happened despite somebody, I don't know, so self-absorbed and so desperate to find a legitimate job, I guess, in Star Trek, that he had to create one for himself. And I find that repugnant, and I always have. Now we have guidelines, and these guidelines, while some people may think that they're oppressive, I think that they're amazing. Everything gets to go back to the way it was, folks. And as much as I really appreciate the idea that some of our good friends who are professionals and have been making money working as actors and voiceover art, whatever, I am so sorry that you're no longer going to be able to be involved in the fan productions. I think that kind of sucks. But at the same time, I kind of don't think it sucks. Because you want to know why? Because fan films were always meant to be made by amateurs. And if you're that good and you're able to get work with Star Trek, I'm fucking jealous of you because you got to make money from the people who really make Star Trek. And I think that's amazing. And you keep doing that, and you keep doing that. And I will support you in that. And I will always support every actor who's ever worked in Star Trek. I will support every writer who's ever been able to work in Star Trek. I will support every novelist that's been able to work in Star Trek. And I will always be jealous that they got to work in Star Trek. But God damn it, fan films are amateur work. And now they are actually allowing amateurs to get $50,000 for 30 minutes of film. And I find that amazing. And if you don't, you can go walk away and walk away from the fandom. This is amazing. No other company has ever given people permission to raise money to make their own expression on an amateur basis. And that's the way it's going to be. I'm sorry, we saw it coming 5 years ago. It's coming into fruition now. The guidelines have set it out, and that's the way it's going to be. I'm okay with that, and I think it's pretty fucking amazing. And I'm happy. I'm happy that amateurs are finally going to be able to say, you know what, I get to make this. I get to do this on my own, and I don't need to get a professional actor. I don't need to get a professional writer. I can do it myself. And that's the way it always should have been.
It's going to be real interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. And one thing that is obvious also is that technology is getting better, and it's getting cheaper, and it's getting more ubiquitous. I think we're going to see very
look at you with your college
good
graduate words.
At least I'm not saying the forbidden word. Yeah, I think we're going to see some very good-looking stuff. I think we're going to see some good quality material coming out. I think we're going to see tight stories.
Mike has been very quiet.
We're going to be okay. Really, seriously, we're going to be okay. And just to change the subject very slightly, I do want to talk about Mr. Yelchin and his horrible demise, but I don't want to talk about it this week because we're running super long. But I do want to talk about that, and unfortunately that's going to be a little involved. But there is a legal aspect to it, with all due respect to him and his grieving family, there is a legal
This is why
aspect.
we hate lawyers. Really, you got to bring it all back. Jeez.
Well, people ask me questions and I do want to answer them, but not today. Not today.
And now you understand why we're going to be spinning off semantic shenanigans, because these are stories that really do deserve to be touched upon, and we just don't have the time to do it here on
I have
G&T most of the
questions
time.
for semantic shenanigans about touching. Hey, whoa, what? Who?
Send them to Nicholas Minasci.
Hey, whoa, hey, you.
But Mike, we didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, I know that one thing that Mike is he's an amazing audio drama producer, and we've got a couple of these under our banner, and we were concerned about whether or not the new guidelines would apply, but we're also very concerned because, again, some of our friends who volunteered to work on his products probably won't be able to participate anymore, and I know that bums you out. Is he there?
We lost him. Uh-oh.
Miss Epico?
Is he there?
I'm sorry,
Mike?
Mike.
Well, didn't he say he's got a house full of kids this weekend?
I don't know.
He's having his own hootenanny.
I hope he's all right.
He's having a flu coven. What was it you said? Flu coven. Jesus.
Flapdoodle.
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 Flu coven.
A Flapdoodle Hootenanny.
What did you say?
Flu coven.
Farfignugan.
Farfignugan, yes.
Well, I'm
Frusenglaja.
Wash your mouth out with soap. We can't say that under the guidelines.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay. There's also
Haagen-Dazs.
another thing I need to touch on with regards to the guidelines and
Touch it.
gaming, and there is a big question from some of the people who work in the Foundry at Star Trek Online, and it's so sweet. First and foremost, we really do need to acknowledge the fact that most of the people who are showing exceptional concern about the guidelines are not because they're people who want to learn how to get around the guidelines. It's how they want to make sure that they adhere to them. These are people who really want to make sure that they don't break the rules. These are people who really want to make sure that they act within the appropriate moral guidelines that
You
have
mean
come
the
out. And
anti-Alex.
because of this, these are wonderful people, and so their questions are legitimate. And it's not because they're angry. They're more about they're terrified. They want to make sure that they don't break the rules. And so while some of the questions that are coming out, you kind of get a little frustrated going, they don't apply. At the same time, where those questions are coming from, and from the heart that they're coming from, needs to be acknowledged. I understand you guys. You want to follow the guidelines. The good news is most of you already are. 99% of you already are, and you always have been. The most amazing thing, though, is that when it comes to Star Trek Online and the Foundry, and for those who do not know, the Foundry is the user-generated content tool in the game. In Star Trek Online, you have the ability to create playable missions and storylines within the game that all the other players get to play. It is, for all intent and purposes, fan productions in the game. The one thing that Star Trek Online may not realize, or the Foundry authors may not realize and should take pride in, is that you're actually the first group of people who have been working with official guidelines since the day the Foundry was created. You've always had those rules you've had to abide by. You've always had those same kind of ideas of what you can and cannot show. You can't use foul language. You can't use overt violence or anything along those lines. You can't do whatever. These are guidelines. You guys have already got them under your hand. You should be proud. You should be proud because you've already shown everybody what it's going to take to make fan films using the new guidelines. So don't worry about whether or not these guidelines actually apply to the Foundry, because you already have your own set of abide by the TOS and abide by the guidelines and the rules within the context of Star Trek Online.
Now that you've said abide
Be
twice,
that-
I
oh,
want
I'm sorry.
somebody to do a Foundry mission of the dude.
The dude, I know. One thing I do want to make very, very clear, because I have been involved in something along these lines, is these new guidelines, I can pretty much guarantee, will apply to any machinima that is made using a Star Trek video game. Why? Because you're making a video presentation using Star Trek. So the guidelines that have come out from CBS, and you decide to make a machinima, meaning an outside video of Star Trek using Star Trek Online as your tool, like we did with Reunion a few years ago, these new guidelines will absolutely apply to you. Okay? So make sure that any voiceover that you use, you're going to use amateur voiceover, that they're not more than 30 minutes long for a 2-part episode of 15 minutes, and that so just adhere to the guidelines for the films. So that's my advice to you. If you're making a Foundry mission in the game, adhere to your in-game mission guidelines. If you're making a machinima or an outside story using any type of Star Trek work from Star Trek Online or even any other game that you can mod,
stop motion using Star Trek figures.
Exactly. If it's going to be a visual art, these guidelines will apply. So there you have it. It's that simple. If it's in game, adhere to your rules in game. If it's going to be used out of game and it's visual, these are going to be it. If you're making a Star Trek Online based audio drama, these won't apply. I hope you get it. Cool.
Good.
Oy.
We can move on, I think. We're
50 for 50?
Awesome.
Is Mike with us yet?
Mike?
I don't know. I'm worried.
Maybe he's in a black hole.
We're sending out the drone to look for him.
I don't know. It could be something at the house.
Probe?
Send out a Class 4 probe. Make sure it's set for Klingons.
Okay, now I have a question. In Star Trek, this bugs me, and saying Class 4 probe. Okay, so is a level 1 diagnostic the highest level diagnostic or the lowest level diagnostic?
I don't know.
Because sometimes something would be really going wrong, and they'd be like, run a level 7 diagnostic.
Or a level 3.
Yeah.
I hear level 3 all the time, and I always thought that was like the highest level. But then again, I'm like, but shouldn't it be level 1? I don't know. Level 1 being lowest, level 3 being highest?
Yeah, I don't know.
They should use Greek letters or something. Level iota.
Well, then no, because then you run into Omega, which is its own thing.
Which is its own
Ball of wax.
No shit. We have, oh my God, tons of news. In light of, before we get to the 50 for 50, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. We're not going to do the headers. I'm just going to pull one from one. In light of Anton Yelchin's death back on June 22nd, Paramount canceled their Star Trek Beyond event out of respect for his friends so they could attend and mourn his death. Let's see, the Shore Leave book premieres. The Meet the Pros has been announced. We will get these links into our show notes. AMC Theaters is offering a Star Trek marathon in celebration of the release of Star Trek Beyond. You will be able to watch all 3 of the new movies in order, which is going to be 2009, Star Trek Into Darkness, and then Beyond. There was the new posters that came out, which we talked about. Michael Giacchino's score titles have been revealed.
The new poster has Hot Chick, right?
Yeah, she's so pretty. Yeah, even in her face paint, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The submission tournament, the semantic shenanigans, we got through pretty much all of it. Yay!
You know, did you ever notice that we'll go off the air and like an hour later some big Star Trek news will break?
It just pisses me off.
I'm like,
why can't they get on our schedule? Come on.
I know, right?
Don't forget you can listen to our interviews with
Tucker Smallwood,
Prelude to Axanar, director Christian Gossett, as well as Tucker Smallwood, a wonderful actor from Star Trek Enterprise and Voyager too, I believe.
Yeah.
And
In the flesh. And I'm gonna. By the way, the last 2 interviews, I've gotten a bunch of private messages from people going like, "Oh my God, you were so serious and you did so good." Fuck you all, okay? Because quite seriously, I've been doing journalism and interviews for almost 30
but let's
years,
face it, Nick,
and no, fuck them.
your persona on this show during our regular Sunday shows is gruff, rude, foul-mouthed, reactive,
All the things we love about him.
And
yeah,
does that mean
oh, yeah.
and people
does that mean that Andrew Dice Clay doesn't love his
welcome
children?
to the world
You know
of
what I
being
mean?
stereotyped.
Exactly.
So fuck all of you, and I'm fucking your mother while your father videos it,
Oh,
and your sister
see,
licks my
and this
taint.
is what people and this is why people are surprised when you don't have to act.
Here's the difference. On this show, we all get to have fun and play. When you're interviewing somebody, you're being respectful to the person, and you're going to be a real journalist at that
Exactly.
point. But here
Right.
you're having fun.
Right, exactly.
Fun wishing them drink a
Well,
box
we all
of
hope
lupus.
Mikey's okay because he hasn't returned to the show. I don't know what's up. He's still recording. He still has an open mic. He's kind of there. I just don't know if he had to step away for a moment or not. So we are going to move forward with 50 for 50.
What's your favorite episode? GNT shows 50 for 50.
At this time,
Okay.
and have at it, Kujiro.
Okay,
I
well.
think Matthew Anderson is having some kind of breakdown.
I don't know.
No, he's explaining the level of diagnostics.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh my God, how funny. Take system out of service, full shutdown, manual inspection, reobserved reinitialization, manual testing. Take system out of service, limited. Oh my God.
Jesus.
I love you, Matthew Anderson. Okay, sorry. Go
I
for
thought he
it.
was having
So
like a
50
data
for 50,
breakdown.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
Fi-
what number are we on? Because I'm confused with the way we've jumped around.
Okay, why don't I give you a little recap here? We up to episode number 3, but we
Okay.
did skip count number 3. We did skip number 6 because it was a 2-part episode, and we wanted to discuss the 2 parts together. So that's what we're at right now, which is the
6
best of
and
both
3.
worlds. So this is 3 and 6, yeah. And again, do I need to do a recap on this one? Because this is probably one of the most
No.
famous
No.
episodes in
My only
the
question
So,
is
I'm
which
gonna
one
guess
ranked
that's-
higher, part 1 or part 2?
I'm going to guess that part 2 is number 6 and part 1 is number 3.
Correct.
Yeah. I would rate part 2 lower than that, but that's me.
I had the
I
other
think
way
it comes
around.
along for the ride in the survey. I
Yeah,
think,
it's
yeah.
caught in the it's
Yeah.
it's what's that? It's drafting.
there you go.
It's drafting.
It's riding on the coattails.
There you go.
So
Yeah, because part 1 is like a 10. Part 2, I would really put it about a 5.
yeah. Well, again, a lot of times when you have these 2-parters, the first part sets up the premise, and there's a lot of excitement with the setup because that's where everything is still kind of up in the air and unresolved. But when you have the second part of the episode, the part 2, that's the resolution. So that's bringing everything back to normal.
Well, remember too, he wrote it not knowing if they were coming back, so he didn't have an ending for it.
That's true because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in Star Trek lore, basically there was a question as whether Patrick Stewart was going to be coming back for the 4th
Yeah.
season, and so they were kind of getting ready to write a possibility of writing Picard out and setting up a new world order, which would have been Captain Riker and probably First Officer Shelby.
Captain Jellicoe.
Which would have actually been kind of interesting in an alternate universe to see how those storylines would develop if that was the way it would have gone.
With him as commander,
Captain
and
Riker and First
Shelby
Officer
as
Shelby.
XO.
Yeah. Actually, I like Shelby as a character.
I do
I do
too.
too.
I know that she
Yes.
causes some discomfort for everybody, but you know what? That was what was it's
It was
drama.
needed.
We want to see conflict.
You need to be shaken up sometime.
Yeah.
So, how do you want to approach this? Do you want to approach it as a whole, or part 1 then part 2? How do you want to do it?
I want to
think
approach
as
it
a
as a
whole.
whole. It's one story.
It
But
is one story.
As we pointed out, there are some differences between the two. episodes. Again, the other thing too is that the episodes, again, one was a cliffhanger, and I can tell you, I'll tell you the story about that. It was, in fact, I'll tell you right now. I remember when this first ran, and Terry will attest to this. I was living. This was before Terry and I were married. I was living actually in the spare bedroom in her parents' house, and I was in the back area. I was watching Star Trek, and this episode was on, and it's like, okay, there's like 10 minutes left in the episode, and
Gotta wrap this up.
Are they?
And
How
it's
are
the
they going to
season
wrap this up?
finale.
And then I started to get really disappointed because I'm like, oh God, they're going to come up with something and just resolve it and be done. And I'm like, no, don't cop out on this because this is great so far, right? And all of a sudden, when he goes to the command where they're building up to him deploying the weapon, and the camera does a sweep around and does a close up on him, and he says the words fire, and then it goes to black and to be continued. I let out an audible scream that Terry can attest. She could hear me all the way through the house.
Hilarious.
I mean, it was Shatner doing Khan. I mean, it was just like, what? How is this happening? I can't wait 3 months for this.
Now, question: has there been any show that you can think of? Because that's really the last time I remember a fandom holding their breath for an entire summer.
Outside
maybe
of
The Walking
Dallas?
Dead.
Dallas.
Maybe The Walking Dead, because
And,
that's
I
the
remember
biggest show.
Dallas.
And,
It was Who Shot JR.
yeah, but I'm talking since Best of Both Worlds Part 1. I'm thinking maybe The Walking Dead with one of their cliffhangers at the end of a
a couple
season.
of them. I know that Game of Thrones people.
That's true. They do.
They have big long waits. Even The Sopranos. Didn't The Sopranos have some long hangers?
Oh,
like
they
that?
had like a year
But you know what?
break, didn't they?
Mm,
That left people
there's-
wondering what was happening.
I think so.
Yeah, but the other thing too is the cliffhanger has become such a device.
That was the
And
first time in Star Trek, wasn't it?
It was the first time in Star Trek that we had a cliffhanger like
And
that.
it was really one of the very few times in television. I mean, really, yeah, there was the JR thing, but it wasn't overused in the 70s and 80s or even the early 90s. It was very rare, especially for episodic television, to see
that
a
episode kind of
cliffhanger.
pushed it as acceptable, and everybody started doing it.
I think you're right. I think you're very, very right.
absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
I like Part 1 because it's so much heavier than Part 2 in so many ways. I mean, you've got the Borg threat, which in itself, pre-Voyager, was very heavy. Then you've got the whole Riker offer to command. Is he going to take it? Is he not going to take it? Shelby coming in, being a shaking, stirring
She's
up
an
the water.
ambitious officer who's a threat to him.
Picard not thinking that's a bad thing that Riker moves on.
Right. And what I loved most about that too is, this is also the first few episodes and not first, but the continuation where you actually start to see some really deep interpersonal relationships between the characters themselves.
Right. One thing
Troy kisses Picard on the cheek. Oh no, that was in Family.
No, that's the next
the next episode.
That was
we watched the next episode because we watched the beginning of Family, which is the next one.
There's the great talk between Riker and Troy about him trying to decide if he wants to take the ship, and she talks about season, and he says season, what a thing to say, and there's that nice interplay between them where she's not only the counselor, but she's also probably his closest friend.
Right. You
That's
actually
one thing
get
that
to see them.
That's one thing we were noting when we were watching it, is just how many great little scenes there were that were in there. That's the one that you just mentioned of them in 10 Forward, and he's talking about his career and actually being retrospective, going, oh my God, am I being too comfortable? Which was actually probably one of the more reflective scenes that you ever see in Riker, and he was being very genuine in that concern about, am I being too comfortable?
And I loved her response. I loved her response, which is, what a ridiculous thing to say. What's wrong with being happy? What's wrong with being comfortable with where you're at?
If they're not going to put you out of Starfleet for staying where you are, then why would it be bad to love your job?
Exactly.
Right.
And I loved her response on that.
And in part 2, my personal favorite scene of the entire of part 2 is Guinan going into
Yes.
the red
Yes.
room and
Oh,
saying, "You gotta let him go."
That is probably
And
the pinnacle scene to me in that episode.
yeah, and perfect use of Guinan,
yes,
and nobody else could have said that. Even Deanna couldn't have said that.
exactly.
Well, and directorial and writing in that scene is great too, because having her walk in and just cavalierly sitting in Picard's chair,
Yeah.
it was so symbolic, because it was like telling Riker, "This is your chair. Come and take it." You know,
It's okay to
and
sit here.
it's okay to sit here. It's okay to let go. It's okay to move on. And there's a whole dynamic that plays there that's even beyond just the dialogue. It's the way it was filmed. It was the way it was blocked, and the movement of the characters. And there's a moment where she stands up, walks away, and kind of defers the chair to him, and basically. And she also walks in. This is kind of subtle too, but she refers to him as Riker when she walks in, and when she leaves, she calls him
Captain.
Captain.
Yeah.
And the other thing Alan and I noticed about not just the part 1, but also part 2, were they directed by the same individual? The different
think so.
directors?
When I looked it up, it looked like it was the same
director. The direction on them is very, very similar in the fact that the one beautiful thing was its subtlety. Many of the characters had so much subtlety that we never really got to see in TNG characters before, and that was the reactions of dialogue with their eyes. You would see Shelby in the background, in the background behind a character, reacting to what Riker would say, and she would have either a serious concern or maybe even a little smirk of like, I know I'm right.
Well,
kind
she
of
has a
thing.
brilliant one. The actress Elizabeth Dennehy has a brilliant one, and it's at the end. It's at the conclusion, after they've done the command to make them all go into regenerative mode and go to sleep, and they crystallize it down to like, well, I told them to go to sleep, and then they come to a reaction shot of Riker, and they go to one of Shelby, and she has just the smallest little smirk on her face, and it just says volumes. It just says like, wow, after all the things we did, all we had to do was put
All
them
we
to
had
sleep.
to do was
And
fucking
it was
put
just
them
like
to
that
sleep.
kind of like, and there's so much subtext in a 1 second shot there.
But
that
it's
she
that
does.
way with
It's
almost
brilliant.
every character. It's that way with Troy. It's that way with Riker. It's that way with even LaForge. There's a couple of times where LaForge, you can see that they understand the interpersonal dynamic between Shelby and Riker, and yet he still looks at her and knows that she knows what the fuck she's talking about. You know, he respects her, and that's something that he gets to turn around and he gets to actually vocalize that to Riker.
Oh, you know what? There's a scene when they're on the planet, and I can't remember what Data said.
Oh, about her airing.
Yeah, and Geordi
And
said,
he goes, "Oh yeah, she aired."
yeah. So, and then Riker actually acts as the XO on that one by snapping.
Yep.
By snapping at her, not in a mean way, but there's fucking rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you think you are. You don't just do that.
Right.
Yes, you were right, but you still have to go through and do the right thing.
Right.
Right.
That
And
there is a procedure.
One other thing in this one is in the Guinan scene. That is so vitally important because, like, if you watched anything, either documentary or some, say, a drama based on a real thing, like a Band of Brothers, let's say, the loss of a commander or the loss of somebody above who's in command of whether it's like a squad or the ship or whatever, to dwell on it at that moment gets nothing done. There's time later, but you're in the middle of a crisis right now that you can't dwell on it. And I thought that was a beauty in that scene.
I agree.
Absolutely. So, well, again, this was, to me, I'm glad this episode ranked so high because to me, this episode was the turning point in the series. This is when the show took off. This is
Oh.
when the characters were fully realized and the relationships were fully realized, and we
And
started to
Gates
have more.
McFadden was happy. She got to fire a phaser.
Yeah, there you go. This is when the series takes off
And
for me.
and the one scene, and I have to say, one more scene that I've always really appreciated is Riker is without a doubt not just in command when he's in the battle bridge. That's but when Riker's command and his own version of captaincy is cemented is when he tells everybody in the lab to disconnect from Picard and step away, and that he makes that command decision to say, as much as I love him, I have to risk his death because it's right for so he makes the right call. He makes this command decision, and he takes his personal feelings about Picard away. And it's a remarkable, solid scene for Riker, and probably when I actually just fell in love with his character. So
And
there you go.
everybody respects the order.
Yes.
So he is cemented
Even
as captain
Crusher.
at that point. Yeah, he's captain at that point.
Which is so funny because he didn't give Jellicoe the same courtesy. But I'm just saying.
True.
I'm just
Okay,
saying.
so
Okay.
so here we are. We're going to go up to number 2 tomorrow
And-
or next week.
And
Are you guys ready?
yeah.
Hold
Sure.
on.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm cupping my junk. Go ahead.
Okay, ready? It will be a DS9 episode. It is
Nice.
season 5, episode 6, number 2 on our countdown. Trials and Tribulations.
Interesting.
Remarkably, and this is very interesting. It had the highest percentage of excellent of any episode, as far as there was more excellent votes than anything else.
Well,
in
that's
its
because
stat.
Dax in the TOS uniform
I think you may
alone
be
rates
right.
it an excellent.
I think you may be right.
So next week, Trials and Tribulations.
Awesome. Well, we are going to tie this show up. I'm in seeing as though that
We're
our
going
poor
to send out
Mikey
some
is
shuttle
missing.
party, some shuttlecraft for Mike.
We are going to make the announcements for him. I know that you can still head over to Gates of Stovacor, head over to our friends. Now, I'm not sure where Ross is at Live, Love, Play. We also have the O Sports Show and all of our wonderful Busy Little Beaver productions. Don't forget you can take a listen to them. And please follow. And if you've got any questions, again, one more call for questions that we can forward to Jordan Hoffman over at the Engage podcast, the official podcast for Star Trek. And we will be happy to forward them on. They will be recording tomorrow. The time limit to get those questions into him is tomorrow morning. You can send them, of course, directly to the Engage podcast. But to be honest with you, getting in touch with them is a little difficult. I don't even see that they have a Twitter account yet or anything along those lines. So send them over to us at hosts@gntshow.com, and we'll be happy to forward them on to you because, of course, we have the ability to send them directly to Jordan that way. Until the next week for episode 244, we will see you then. We will talk about trials and tribulations and so more of the remaining fallout from the new fan film guidelines. Until then, live long and prosper.
Kapla.
See you later.
Joe Lantra losers, KMG 365.
Now, we do have a problem.
I don't know how we go off the air.
Are we still live?
We are
Yes,
still
we
live.
are. Okay, now is the point where we talk about the audience. But we can't because they can still hear
We should
us.
probably all switch green room if we're going to continue talking.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't that take us off of live?
So, thanks everybody in the chat room. We are going to be switching studios right now.
We have to go do our live viewing of a porn that we do every week that none of you know about.
Yeah, we're off to the secret Batcave. See you.
And thank
Thank
you
you.
all so much for listening, and we will catch you next week.
This week is Coal Miner's Daughter. Never mind.
So
Music for the GNT show is provided by 5-Year Mission, Enterprise Blues Band, Warp 11, Andrew Allen, and Greth Thor. The GNT show is a BLB production.
Move ahead, walk back to 10. Put a mini skirt on my yo man. Represent the human race. And we make space a happy place. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Gonna travel to new worlds. Beam on down and meet some green girls. Gonna see what we can see. A fancy free galaxy. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Come and take a tour with me. There'll be no cons or Kobayashi. Gonna travel to the end and make new friends with aliens. To boldly go where no man's gone before. Space happy. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. To boldly go where no man's gone before. Space happy. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. They'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Space happy.
Music for the GNT show is provided by 5-Year Mission, Enterprise Blues Band, Warp 11, Andrew Allen, and Greth Thor. The GNT show is a BLB production.
Move ahead, walk back to 10. Put a mini skirt on my yo man. Represent the human race. And we make space a happy place. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that G community. Come and take a tour with me. There'll be no cons or Kobayashi. I'm gonna travel to the end and make new friends with aliens. Totally go where no man's gone before. Space heavy. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero G.